again, welcome. My name is Dan Gillespie. I'm the Director of Technical Services for Alder Color Solutions. We are a dealer and consultancy out of Portland, Oregon. And today we're going to be talking about spot colors and the spot color functionality specifically within EFI Fiery XF. I got to mute my phone. Welcome, Jeremy. Jeremy is with EFI. Would you like to introduce yourself, sir?
Sure. Hopefully you can hear me all right. Jeremy Tesch. I'm a technical sales resource for the US and Canada for all fiery wide format products for EFI. So there's a team of two of us that work together, and the dealer network, especially Alder Color being one of our most important dealers. So here to help. Welcome, everyone.
Rock and roll. Okay, so let's just dive in. First of all, before we get to some of the specific functionality, and I'm going to switch over to my Windows and my Fiery XF rip right now. I want to talk about Pantone colors specifically and the Pantone libraries. Make everybody aware that if you're not already, that Pantone has released a new version of the spot color libraries, I think September of the last year. So these would be referred to as the version 4 definitions or version 4 libraries. The very most recent or current version of EFI Fiery XF, which is version 7.1.4, includes these new Pantone libraries. For any creatives out there, if you want access to these libraries in Adobe Creative Suite, you will have to download an extension, Pantone extension, and pay a $30 a month, or excuse me, $30 a year subscription fee, and you'll have access to these new version 4 spot color libraries from within Adobe Creative Cloud. So, now that, or once, designers have access to these new spot colors, they're going to be, there's 294 new colors in the new books, in the new libraries. So the designers will be able to choose from these 294 new colors. So there's a total of 2,161 colors in the new version 4 libraries. And all those definitions come with EFI Fiery XF version 7.1.4. On the Fiery XF side, if you want those new libraries, you have to upgrade or update to that latest version. If you're on the Fiery side, which we're not really specifically talking about, they actually have a website where they have the version 4 libraries that you can import into your Fiery controller without upgrading your Fiery controller. So just a little side note there. So let's dig into the functionality within Fiery XF. So I have a job here in my Epson 7000, and this is the form that we use for the SGIA Digital Color Professional Program. If you're not familiar with the Digital Professional Program, it's a color management certification that SGIA, has created. I'm one of the certified instructors for the program, and we travel the country and teach people color management and prepare them to become a certified expert in SGIA's Digital Color Professional Program. That's a mouthful. I think I need more coffee. Anyway, comedy and education is what I'm all about. So here we go. Let's open up this file, this PDF that we're going to print, and we can see I'm going into the job editor, and I'm now looking at the color properties here. I have collapsed the color adjustment properties and the color management properties so we can focus on the spot color properties. So right off the bat, it's talking about the handling of spot colors. If you have a custom spot color library created, you can choose any of the libraries that you have created. You can see that I have 3 custom libraries that have different colors in them chosen. And then it also talks about spot color priority, which I'll hit on in just a second. but you can see that this particular file has, a bunch of different spot colors in it. You can see Pantone 568, Pantone 300, Pantone Purple, and then there's one here called Plum Crazy. So that's a spot color, but it's not a Pantone name. And so Pantone, or what is happening with this file? So a lot of designers do this where they might have spot colors that aren't using Pantone names. If you're using the Pantone name, let's talk about the search priority now. So the Pantone libraries are included with the RIP, and those are considered to be the internal libraries. So the first thing that it's going to do is it's going to look to any of your color libraries, like this one that you have defined. If this is set to none, which it probably is, and very well could be set to none, it's going to look, you basically only have internal libraries. So even though it's going to look for Pantone 568 as a CMYK recipe first, then an LAB recipe, it's not going to find those. It's going to go to the internal library that has the Pantone definitions or LAB target values, and that's what it's going to use. Except for this color here that does not have a Pantone name. It was, tried to look it up in the internal library, but because it didn't find it, it went to the source file. So the source file is the PDF, this PDF right here. And the source file would have come up with some CMYK values from the application that created it. In this case, Adobe Illustrator. So this form was created in Adobe Illustrator, and Adobe Illustrator, the default CMYK working space for Adobe Illustrator is US Web Coded Swap, V2. So unless you've changed your CMYK working space from within Adobe Creative Cloud, this CMYK recipe was not looked up, in your printer's color space. It was looked up in your desktop application color space, which would have been US Web Coded Swap V2. So we really, really do not want to use this CMYK conversion. So I suggest that you always turn the source file to none, so that it's only looking in your libraries for colors that either EFI or Pantone have defined or that you've defined, and that it's not referring to that CMYK value that's part of the PDF.
So if you save that change, we can see the result of changing that to none.
Good point. Let's do that. File, save. Again, for anyone who's joined us late, you can feel free to turn on your webcam, answer any question or ask any questions, make comments, as long as, you're not a problem. If you're a problem, we're going to turn you off. So anyway, now you see that that Plum Crazy, once we turned the source to none, just came up as an unknown color. That's going to stop the RIP and error the job so that you can make sure and address this color appropriately. So I happen to know, and if you, on this form, if you look at the form, we actually tell you on the form what Pantone color this is supposed to be. So it's called Plum Crazy because we need to make sure that you know how to repurpose named colors and get them to print as best as they can or optimally. So you can see here that this is actually supposed to be Pantone 269C. So for this Plum Crazy color, I can simply right here click on this drop-down menu and make this an alias. I don't see alias in the list though anymore, Jeremy.
In this case, you would select Pantone, Dan.
So yeah, we're going to choose Pantone, and then here I'm just going to type 269. right here. I should be able to type 269. There's Pantone 269C. Now I'm repurposing that color to be the Pantone color that it's supposed to be. Now, if you have a custom color for that, you could simply choose LAB, type in the LAB target values for that color, and it would use that. But we've actually repurposed that to the Pantone library. So now that I've set that to Pantone 269C, it will use the LAB target values from the internal library that's included in EFI. So that should explain how the search priority works so that you can override colors. So Jeremy and I are going to show you how to either import or measure your own colors within the spot color editor. Those will typically be entered as LAB values. So any LAB values that you enter would be used, those definitions would be used before the internal library, which is how you want it to happen. So if you have entered a Pantone 568, that's a different recipe than the Pantone 568 in the internal library, it'll use your definition of that named color rather than the internal version of that named color. Excuse me. So let's go into the spot color editor and we'll check out some more functionality. So you might be wondering at this point, and you should be wondering at this point, whether or not you can match or come close to these spot colors with your particular printing device. So hopefully you know that, spot colors were created on analog devices like offset sheet-fed printing presses, and that, they can mix up whatever color can of ink they want and pour it right into that machine. But if you're using a digital machine that has a set number of colors, then your capabilities of matching these spot colors are going to be limited. And there's a way within the color editor for you to see your capabilities of matching these spot colors on any given printing device. So now we've launched the color editor, and in here we can choose a color. Now I'm going to show you that you can also measure a color. I've already done that. So to create a new spot color, there's a button down here. You can add a spot color. You can name this whatever you want, like Dan's Awesome Color, or a Pantone name, or whatever you want to call this color. And then right down here, there's a measure button. And this measure button will connect to a spectrophotometer. Now the spectrophotometer has different settings for how it works. So you need to go up to I would recommend you go up to the preferences and double check how your measurement device is set up. So you can see that I'm configured to connect to an EFI ES2000, which by the way is the same thing as the X-Rite i1 Pro 2. And if you click the little settings button next to that, you have a choice of how you're using this device. In this case, I'm set to the UV cut. I'm going to be using this with the D50 light source in the 2-degree observer angle, and the color is going to be previewed to me by my system profile. And I just happen to have a calibrated display, so I should get a relatively accurate soft proof or at least visual of the color. So I'll save that, click the measure button. It's connecting to the device. I'm now going to calibrate the device on its base. And then I'm going to measure a color. Do I have anything colorful? Here we go. Here we go, measuring my shirt. Bang. And that's not a very good color. How about this? I've got a candle right here. How about we measure this candle? Oh, whatever. You get the point, right? You measure an object You can measure, a fan guide. You can measure a previously printed piece. And now you have the definition of that color in here. And it gives you the LAB target values. Now, when you talk about spot colors, most people refer to them in Pantone color system language based on the Pantone number or PMS number. But that color is really these three numbers: an L value, an A value, and a B value. These are referred to as the target values. So each different spot color comes with the real definition, or the color that you're trying to match is this particular LAB value. So I think it's also important to point out that Pantone publishes these libraries in 4 different measurement modes. When you use a spectrophotometer like the ES2000 or X-Rite i1 Pro 2 or any other device, they're capable of measuring in different measurement modes. And the LAB value, or the measurement that you take with that device in the different measurement modes, is not going to be the same LAB value. So Pantone publishes these libraries in 4 different measurement modes: in M0, M1, M2, and M3. And we could get into all these measurement modes and, go crazy and talk for hours, but just know that Pantone publishes these in 4 different measurement modes. And it's very important to know and understand what library your software is using. For instance, Adobe Creative Suite. So if we look at, let's just go into Photoshop. I've got a visual reference image here, but I'm going to go into the color picker. And I'm going to pick a Pantone Plus solid coated color. And I'm going to search a particular Pantone color, in this case, 7563. And by the way, that was the color of my candle. So anyway, this color in Adobe Creative Cloud, they don't give you decimal points. They give you only round numbers. So this color in Photoshop is 69L, 17A, 63B. I suggest that you're double checking the color you think you're trying to match by the Pantone number with its actual target values, so that you know for sure that you're trying to match the right color. So in this case, the color now I will tell you also that the Adobe Creative Cloud only uses the M2 library that Pantone publishes. So again, these Pantone libraries are available from Pantone in 4 different measurement modes. Adobe Creative Cloud is specifically using the M2 measurement mode library. So these would be the LAB values for this color in that measurement mode. And we want to double check what our RIP is using. This would go for any RIP. So I'm going to now get out of Photoshop and go into, and let me look at those values again, just so we know them. 69, 17, 63, and those are rounded. And then when we go into the color editor and we go into the Pantone color system and search for that color, which was 7563. And there's the definition, 68.63 rounded up as 69. A is exactly 17, B is exactly 63. So we know that the internal Pantone color for EFI Fiery XF target values match those from Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign, so on. So it's important that you know that stuff, and I may be going off on a tangent, but we're just riffing. We are riffing here today, folks.
Question for you, Dan.
Yes.
Does that mean the internal Pantone library is always M2?
Yes. EFI Fiery XF includes only M2 definitions for spot colors.
Okay, thanks.
And you would have to double check with your other RIP manufacturers as to what libraries they include, because they're not all the same. So if you have multiple RIPs from multiple manufacturers in your shop, chances are they are both using different target values to match the same numbered color or named color, which obviously is a problem. So beyond that, we have, we want to know how well can we match this color. So, the color in the job that was the plum crazy color was actually Pantone 269. So let's go look at Pantone 269, C, and let's see what my capabilities of matching this color are. So I'm going to go down to the Gamut Check button right down here. I'm going to click that Gamut Check. And now any of the printers that I have connected via Fiery XF, I can choose either printer. Now, both of mine are basically the same model, different size, but same model. And then I'm going to choose any one of my workflows or media profiles, rather. And this is going to compare this LEB value to my output color space and tell me how close I can match it. And here's the calculation. Now, I just happen to be doing this on an Epson P7000. For those of you who are not familiar with this printer has a huge gamut because it not only has CMYK ink, but it also has orange and green ink. I have the standard version, so they also make one with violet ink. So, but this particular color, I can match almost perfectly. 100% in gamut, average delta E of 0.62. So I can match that within a very, very tight tolerance. Now, I know the particular colors that are the furthest out on these Epson printers. So for instance, a reflex blue is very, very hard to match on any printing device.
Could I ask another question?
Yes, go ahead, Tim.
What formula would that be?
That's Delta E 2000.
Thank you.
It should be using the Delta E spec that's set in preferences, yeah.
Let's
I think it's
go.
2000 now.
Do we have to double check that? Let's see.
I mean, you kind of got to be careful of that because I just had a situation the other day where the Home Depot orange was 1 Delta E, yet 76 was, I guess it doesn't really matter. Just set your preference. So the default is 2000?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
thanks.
Tim brings up an
And there's your
interesting-
threshold as well.
Yeah, you got a threshold for pass fail.
That's great. Thank you.
And you have choice of the Delta E comparison method. So when you're comparing an values to each other, doing any kind of Delta E comparisons, there's 4 different algorithms or methods that they can do that math with. So Delta E 76, and not to get too far into it, really is just the mathematical comparison. The Delta, which is, these 2 are probably the most popular out of the 4 choices. And the Delta E 2000 is this same math, but with adjustments for human visual perception. So Delta E 2000, I believe, is the default, but you can set it the way you want it here so that you're getting the feedback that you want. We're going to double check now Pantone Reflex Blue. I know my Epson printer can't match this as well as that Pantone 269 we checked first. So I'm going to go into the Gamut Check here, same setup, click next, and you can see, this is why Epson publishes that they can match 99% of Pantone coded guide on their P7000, P9000 series printers. So you can see that, you can't match this as well as that purple, but you can still match it within a less than 3 Delta E, which is still pretty tight. So in any case, we'll move along from there and we'll talk about some other things. So, you know, I think
Just a couple notes there.
Yep.
Dan's doing specific colors there. You could actually select the entire Pantone library if you wanted kind of a status check all at once. And it's also useful for, you know, prediction is useful before you get the printers running, right? If you have a large job, do I need to use a different printer, different substrate, or maybe a different print mode can give me better numbers. So you can very quickly get a status check prior to print, kind of a classic use case for that.
Yep. Yep. So you can also, you know, these Pantone libraries, you know, are, you know, the de facto. It's kind of, you know, everyone uses the Pantone spot color system or color matching system. So, but especially on the digital devices that are only CMYK inks, and there's so many different kinds of printing machines, different kinds of ink chemistries, different kinds of, you know, medias and substrates and fabrics and stuff that people are printing on. You know, we really want to know what our capabilities are, and, you know, having the ability to define our capabilities and share those with our print buyers and designers who are, you know, creating files that we're going to print is quite important. So, you know, there's an optimization function in here, and there's a fan guide swatch book functionality in here. So I'm going to talk about both of these things. And here we have the optimization. So you do have the ability to optimize spot colors in EFI. I think it's important to note that that's a functionality that a lot of RIPs don't have. The spot color optimization will actually color correct the files and make sure that you're getting the best possible in gamut match you can. Although, you know, I generally see only minimal improvements here. Sometimes the delta E improvement is so small that it's really not even visible. The RIP does a great job of matching the spot color as long as you happen to be using the right target values. But this optimization can be used in other ways. So as soon as I click optimize, now this, if I just had one color selected here and I clicked optimize, it's just going to optimize that one color. But for instance, I could go into the Pantone color system and search for space C. And that's going to give me all the colors that end with C. And I could scroll down and select all these colors and then hit optimize. And that's going to build me a chart laid out for my spectrophotometer. If I hit the optimize button, let's see here. So if I go, I'm already in the color editor. I just want to get out of here so I can show you something else. And come into here, in my Epson P9000, I've already sent this job. So when I open up this job, you'll see it created me an ICC style chart. I'm going to zoom in on this so you can see this good. Now this chart I did for a Barbieri LFP. So this took all 2,161 colors from the Pantone library and built a 5-page chart that I can now print on my device and measure. And now I have the target values of all my in-gamut colors that my printing device, my printer, ink, and substrate combination are capable of printing. And there's a lot you can do with that data. You can take that and save that as a color library, obviously in the color editor software. And outside of EFI, you could take all those values and create what's called an Adobe color book or Adobe swatch exchange file. So Adobe uses the Adobe swatch exchange file, which is the acronym is ASE, So it utilizes the ASE format for all of the Pantone libraries that ship with the product. So you could actually print all these colors, measure them right here, take that data and create an Adobe Swatch Exchange library, and then publish that for your print buyers, your designers. And then if your designers or your print buyers were picking colors from that library, all those colors would be in Gamut for your printing process. So not only can you optimize the colors this way, you can do other things with the data, and that's what consultants like Tim Quinn and myself and others, do for people. So back to the color editor. I don't know that anybody had any comments or questions about that, because I kind of left it open-ended as to where and how you might create those Adobe Swatch Exchange files. But should you have those questions, maybe hit me directly via email or on LinkedIn, and we can address those for you. So in the color editor, the other thing is the fan guides. We can create a fan guide here and print all these spot colors out on our materials and provide the prints to our salespeople, our customer service reps, our clients, so that they have an actual printed sample in the form of a swatch book, or in the vein of a swatch book or fan guide. And let's see, I'll just pick one and go ahead and send it. Patch size is 30 by 20 millimeters. So go ahead and print this, just so you can see the artwork. Okay, do you want to close the window? Sure, I do. So let's go back over. We're in the job editor here. Let me hide that. Get into the command workstation and look back at my P7000 where I sent this. And here's my swatch book. I can open that and we can take a look at these files. I think it's still working on previewing this stuff. I think this file might be huge. I probably shouldn't have picked like 3,000 colors to build that. But it's just, I'm working on a laptop and I'm running the software in parallels. So it's, doesn't have a whole lot of horsepower to process this. So I guess this isn't going to preview. Is this, oh, it's still spooling. You can see it's still spooling. Like I said, I had thousands and thousands of colors that I did this with. So, you might not want to do that many colors at a time, especially when you're doing a live training online and time is of the essence. So yeah, that's still ripping. Let's go back to the library and just choose a handful of colors. So we'll go back up to the top, choose a handful of colors, and do that again. Print that again. Yes. Come over here. That should spool a lot faster. This one's still working on spooling. Again, it's not a fair assessment because, like I said, I'm running this in parallels on my Mac, which is several years old anyway. So we'd have to wait until these rip, I think, or can now, there we go. There you can see that it's not really a fan guide, but it would serve as like a poster that you could use. And if you zoom in, you can see under each patch, it tells you the Pantone name. What's the other information in there, Jeremy? Is that CMYK?
That is the actual.
Yeah, CMYK.
That's the actual CMYK used.
Yep.
Yep.
So now these.
And then just a note. Sorry, Dan, running over you. But just a quick note is, this would be great for a wall graphic, but you certainly can make this into 8.5 by 11 size pages that you can make a binder of this, their sales team or whatever. Not necessarily a fan guide, but something more hands-on, displayable.
Yeah, so Jeremy, I think at this point I'm going to turn things over to you to talk about the variations and anything else that I have failed to cover.
Okay, so I'll just let you continue driving. So, so far we've kind of gone over the process of what it is in the library, how you define it as part of a job, and we've been able to predict LED values before you even do any production, to wrap our heads around what we're capable of printing, and then even given that capability in terms of a fan book for, so you can share, this is what I can actually produce in a visual way. The other thing we did then was we said, well, we also have this ability to do a measurement-based optimization. So what's that going to do? It's going to basically take all your colors through that measurable target that Dan produced earlier. And if you did want to iterate, you would then print and measure that. It would collect the LAB or the spectral values that essentially get turned into LED values compared to the target values, and then it would attempt to make an improvement. Like Dan said, I agree with him that the improvement is somewhat marginal because you're basically leaning on your printer profile and the accuracy of it with your current print environment, with substrate, ink, and printer, and so on. If that's accurate, an optimization is just going to make a small marginal improvement. But the improvement is possible. Now remember, out of gamma colors are completely on their own. They're just going to move around slightly in that process. So especially for those out of gamma colors, we offer kind of a more tailored iteration method that's based on visual analysis. So oftentimes you can get a good color metric match, but because of contaminant color or just how we perceive color, if you hold it up next to a sample, maybe with the way the light hits it or the customer preference, things might not look ideal. And we might be able to just tailor that color, push it in, nudge it in a certain direction. And actually, if you were to measure it, it wouldn't be more accurate, but visually we might make the customer more happy. So that's where we can kind of put it down our instruments for a moment and then try and improve things in a visual way. And we've always been able to do that by taking a color in the central area here where Dan's cursor is, the LAB values. If you understand LAB color, you can do a manual iteration. If you know it needs to be more blue, well, you can add a larger negative. It's kind of a weird way of saying it, but make your negative value larger, and that will pull it in the blue area. The other thing you could do, Dan, if you select one of those other reflex blues,
yep,
on the left,
yeah,
and then do the
I was
conversion.
responding to a chat.
It,
there we go.
Gotcha. So click the duplicate. Yep. So now that becomes a Pantone reflex blue that we can manipulate ourselves. So we could simply measure a value into here. We could add our own, type in our own manual LAB color, or we can convert this to CMYK. So if you click the convert button at the bottom.
Yeah, and I just wanted to point out too that the original Pantone value, the type is internal, and once we duplicate it, it's LAB. And here's the convert button right here.
So again, this is going to reference the exact printer ICC profile you're about to print through. So just select anything here. Okay, so now we can click finish, close the window. And as soon as we do that, you'll notice on the right, it converts into the printer's color space. This is the actual device values that's going to send to the printer, 189, 0, 11, and some change, right? So you can get some visibility in exactly, if it was going to take a 1432 -67, this is the device recipe for that particular printer on that particular substrate that EFI is going to send. Now, this gives you a direct way of manipulating those. So if you want to do a manual iteration, here you go. You at least have a starting point now. The radio button directly above is currently set to printer, above the values there. Yep. That means those are the actual printer values going to the printer. If you flipped it to source, that essentially is like changing the pixel value in the file. So now the 189,011 is going to go through the full color transform. That's a more indirect way, right? So most of the cases here, you would have this set to printer so you can crank on those values and have a direct effect on what's going to the printer. But these are all manual ways of playing with numbers. Another way of doing this is taking that same color, and Dan, if you select the variations checkbox, this does our iteration in a more kind of organized way. Again, going through the same printer profile we expect to do production with. Click OK. And now we get this, it populates the variations section in the lower right. And what we get is 3 groupings of colors. The center color is our original internal value. And then from that point, we go in different vectors of the 6 primary colors and add that essential ink or that color direction. So we're giving you an option of maybe if you added a little more yellow, what would that color look like? And that's the central grouping.
You see, as you click these hexagons, the CMYK values are changing.
So we went from 0 yellow to now more, now we're taking out contaminant color or so on. So the idea is that, and then we have a grouping on the left that happens to be less saturated in total with the same vectors, a grouping on the right, more saturated versions of those with the same vectors. Or we could do that with brightness groupings. The idea here is that you start with the target value in the center, have different variations, and then you can print this. So Dan, if you click print at this point, we have 2 ways of printing this, and we'll print both. First is the color search pattern, which aligns with what you see in the software. And then we have a more kind of organized way. So now if we go back to
just showing the 2 different methods, the search pattern and the neighbor pattern.
Yep.
And now here's the files in the RIP.
So you can see this roughly out is the exact same positions we see in the software of the different variations. So now you hold this up to the sample, or you sit down with a customer and you say, do any of these look better to you? And they can simply select it. And let's just say the top left color in the central grouping is really what we like. Then you go back to the color editor and click on that color. And as Dan showed you, that will then push it in that direction. The idea is that you can either do this just without printing, or you can print every other one, or you can kind of nudge it around and then print those files. And then it's basically iterating in an organized way for a visual result. So the other method is a little bit different in the layout, in that it is those exact same colors, but in columns with actual CMYK values listed. So it kind of gives you an insight in how we're building it, those color variations.
Trying to get this right side up. I'll choose the right one eventually.
270.
There we go. Boom. So if you see there, it gives you, you know, the CMYK device values that it's using. So I think the big difference here is this one, you know, you could print that and set it aside and make these decisions whenever. But with the what was the first one? The search pattern?
Yeah.
The first one we printed was search pattern. With that one, you have to keep this window open, and you have to make these determinations right away when you're looking at those and visually evaluating those, so that you can adjust these numbers and save it.
Why is it printing as a postscript?
I don't know. That's it's just generating under the hood. It's generating it as a postscript file.
Yeah, it's just hard coded to do it that way.
All right.
You know, we're right at the 45-minute mark, so I think that's all the content we wanted to deliver. I think we also wanted to mention that, you know, EFI is in the works already with a new replacement for color editor. It's already been implemented into the Fiery controller and is on the roadmap for Fiery XF. So within the next year or so, and there's no definitive date at this point, but there will be a replacement software for Color Editor that has all kinds of great new features. So this has, been the current solution or, functionality for a very long time. And, we just thought we would cover this, current iteration of it. So Jeremy, do you have anything else you wanted to add there before we open it up for questions?
No, I think that's, a lot we added there.
So a question, the new color editor, is it going to be an option or standard in the Fiery XF?
Yeah, so it's basically going to be just as it is. I mean, nothing's finalized, but we've had this spot color functionality as part of the default RIP for probably over 10 years now. So that's the current, that we plan going forward.
Okay, thanks.
Jeremy, can you share
Yep.
with us any of the new stuff that's in there that people might be interested in?
Yeah, actually, if anyone's interested, and anyone who's worked with Fiery in the past, we do have all kinds of online training at learning.efi.com. And because this is released as part of our cut sheet Fiery controllers, there's training out there available for it if you kind of want to get a preview. It's called Spot Pro. Yeah, so no timeline on the roadmap, but this is our future, is kind of that tool. And some things you'll get in it that you don't have here, especially to this conversation. There'll be an ability to export, for example, an Adobe Swatch Exchange directly. So Dan can help you pull data from different sources and create an Adobe Swatch Exchange, but eventually Spot with other software, but Spot Pro can do that directly. It also does a better job at grouping colors. So one of the things that's kind of cumbersome, we give you everything in here in terms of library. There's like 35,000 some spot colors in here, but it's not super good at organizing them. So if you want to see all the coded Pantone colors, you kind of got to trick the search mechanism. So those are just some of the things. And of course, it's on a newer looking platform and so on. So a little preview there.
So the new version would be more organized?
Much. Yeah, for instance, you can see here that this includes a bunch of different Pantone libraries, but they're all in one folder.
Yeah.
If I just want to search for the coded colors, or I just want to search for the uncoded colors, or the metallics, or whatever library I'm interested in, there's no way to do that in this current version. But in the newer version, you'll be able to have subfolders and have things, a lot more organized in there. Anything else? Tim, can you think of anything?
I have a specific question.
Yay.
Thanks. If I was going to send a grid full of spot chips that were just LAB colors, let's say 300 squares full of LAB, do they go through the system and go straight to the output profile, or do they get assigned an RGB first or something like that? I'm a little confused because we've got our Casper grid system, we can make it be all LAB. Will it stay that way through the whole system?
As far as I know, yes. I mean, I'll let Jeremy answer officially, but as far as I understand, if the color definition is in LAB, it doesn't need to go through a profile connection space. It just goes directly to mapping into the output color space.
Okay, thank you.
There's one thing that we didn't cover, and that's verification. A lot of people are doing color verification, but most people are only doing that with CMYK colors. And EFI has a really slick way of doing a verification with spot colors as well. So let me just show you this quickly while anybody thinks of any other questions they might have. I'm going to go into the server manager right now, into the workflow properties, and show you a functionality called dynamic wedge. So we're going to go into my Epson, open this guy up, go to any one of my, workflows, go to the verify properties, and look under control bar 1. In control bar 1, at the very top of the page, there's a thing called dynamic wedge. So with dynamic wedge, it would build a spot color it would build a control strip from the spot colors in the job. So you can say, hey, I want a control strip built on the fly dynamically. I want that laid out for whatever spectrophotometer I have. I want you to pick up to 16 colors. I want a combination of process colors and spot colors. This is good too, because most of the control strips have printing related colors. See them, solid cyan, magenta, yellow, black, red, green, blue, gray balance patches, but they don't necessarily have the colors that are in the artwork or photographs that you're printing. So you could do 16 or 32 or 64 patches of the process and or spot colors. And EFI is going to build a control strip that you can measure to do QC, quality control, or color verification of not only your process color, but your spot colors as well. So I don't know any other RIP that makes it this easy to do spot color verification. But if you want to see this work, we can go to a job that has spot colors in it. And I'll just change the properties of this job. And here we've got, where my view at? Let me just close this and open this again. Am I zoomed in here or what? I can't see this.
It's probably not previewing because of the Plum Crazy.
Okay, so let's go repurpose that because I did not save that. So let's go in and say, hey, you're really Pantone 269. And then once we save that, it should preview. And then we go to the verify settings and turn this first control strip on to dynamic wedge and tell it we want, 16 colors laid out for the ES2000, both process and spot. And once we turn that on, we should just be able to click save, and it's going to automatically generate that control strip and add it to the bottom of our bar. So there's the artwork that now we can measure, and we can do process control and see how well we matched these spot colors in the job as in addition to the CMYK colors. So that was the only other thing that I remembered that we wanted to talk about. So it was 5 minutes before noon. I think we've covered all the functionality there is in Fiery XF. We got a chat message here. Let's see what they want. So is there a way to run a chart or dynamic wedge of multiple custom spot colors, make adjustments to multiple spot colors with a reading all at once, opposed to editing each color individually in the color editor? Yes, that is the optimization. So again, if we had these colors, this would have created a library specifically for this job that we could probably open and do it just with these colors. But I'll look in the color editor and show you, hey, if I've got these colors right here, I select all the ones that I want to do, and that could be multiple. So here's 3 colors. And once I hit the optimization, it's going to build me a chart for my spectrophotometer for however many colors I have selected, and it's going to automatically go through an iterative process and correct those and optimize those as best as possible. So,
Dan, just to note, there's also a on-the-fly optimization direct to that dynamic wedge. So if you print that dynamic wedge from your job, measure it, that opens up the optimization button, which can then just do a direct color strip, control strip optimization also.
okay, yeah.
Into
Yeah, so we'll be saving this video and uploading this to our YouTube channel and sending y'all a link so that you have it for reference. But if nobody else has any more questions, we'll wrap it up. So this is your last chance.
There's a question on the chat.
Oh, another chat question.
Yeah, I'm going to answer that for everyone.
All right, all right.
Go ahead. It's the question.
yeah, so
is
the
there
answer- the
any
question was-
documentation or training?
Yeah, so some resources. So the training, all online training is organized by topic. So there is stuff that deep dives directly into this, learning.efi.com, and then just go to Fiery Wide Format and it's all there. That content is all available to anyone. You just have to register and create an account on the site. You'll see some costs there, but that's related to groups of courses that are organized under Fiery Professional and Fiery Expert if someone wanted to become certified. The other thing is help.efi.com/Fiery XF. This is basically a little known resource, but where documentation and printer supplements. So a printer supplement would be how to interface with Fiery XF with a specific printer, and then kind of larger topic how-to guides or topics are also available there. So check that out.
And what about
And then just one last one would be communities.efi.com is where support basically puts everything they know online. So search for a topic, there's likely a support generated article explains how to do things or fix a problem, or also a user forum there as well. So
Perfect. Thank you so much,
Awesome.
Lori and Jeremy, for helping me promote this and put it together and deliver it. And thanks everybody else. I hope everybody stays safe, and we'll catch you on the other side of this deal.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
thanks, Dan.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dan.
Have a great day.